Hello and welcome back to the official Scottish Rugby podcast. On this episode we look back at the match here at BT Murrayfield between France and Scotland. Plus we hear from Head of Group Marketing and Commercial Toni Blackhurst and Head of Brand Lynsey McMillan. Mossy, Al, great to be back in the studio after a good win at the weekend here at BT Murrayfield. We're going to talk about that game at length, but just breaking news, Sam Skinner, he's been ruled out. A bit of a blow for Scotland. Tim Swenson going to come in to train with the squad, but just your guys' thoughts on Sam missing out in the World Cup.
The first thing is disappointing for Sam. He's put himself in a position over the last year or so to have earned the right to go. I think that him and Scott Cummings were battling it out, but I would expected that Sam would have got the nod. It's an opportunity for somebody else, and that might be Scott Cummings. What Sam gave us that we probably don't have elsewhere is the ability to take a second row that can also play in the back row if needed. There are a couple of bangs at the weekend. Injuries are always a big part of these World Cup warm-up games. We've talked about that a lot, but yeah, as I say, first and foremost, disappointing for him.
Yeah, you lose quite a lot with losing Sam because his versatility, but he's also able to fit into whichever type of structure that Greg and the coaches want to play. He can link, he's combative, he's a big ball carrier, but he can also link and give that extra pass. He's a good defender, plays six, plays in the back row, it's good in the maul, was calling the line out the weekend, so you lose a lot, and it's never nice to see. But I think as soon as you saw it on Saturday, you felt the worst. It looked like an uncomfortable one, and he got up and got himself off the field, and he kind of hoped at that point it wasn't too bad, but unfortunately it's not good. I'm not sure how bad it is. It's not good enough for him to play a significant part in the World Cup is what it said, but I say, who knows how bad it is. But if Scotland reach the latter stages and you're back playing and somebody's needed to call up, there's never write that off as well. There may be an opportunity. As I say, I don't know how long he'd be out for, but if it's a 4 to 6 weeker or who knows, he might still be able to fulfil that dream.
Yeah, you guys will know more than me about a hamstring injury. That's what's been come out. It's a hamstring. What's the minimum you can really get back from that? Is it 4 to 6, or is everybody different?
Just depends what it is. I mean, it was although it was a hamstring injury, it was a contact injury as well, because he got taken a bash when he was trying to bridge over the ball. So you just don't know what damage it's done on around about it. As Chris says, it might be short term. If it is, and the call up might come. I
don't think it'd be short term, because it did look as if it was under a bit of stress, but I say we need to quantify short or long term. I would imagine, like, I don't know if it needs surgery, but if it did, it would be long term.
Yeah.
But again, it depends what type of player you are. Sometimes if your game's purely built on speed and acceleration and powering outside, third and outside channels, and you're probably going to be more affected by hamstring than somebody who plays in the tight five, who's still going to need that strength and the load in it. But if your game's built more on physicality in the tight, then you're arguably at times maybe putting your hamstring under less stress. But yeah, never nice, but it is a big part of the game, the injury. I've no doubt, unfortunately, there'll be other players injured before all the respective teams head to Rugby World Cup, and there'll be some injuries over there. But I do reiterate, I've said this 2 or 3 times, but I do believe that these players have got to play. Your body has to be prepared, and if you don't play enough now, then you'll probably getting injured in the opening minutes of the opening games of the World Cup.
Yeah, completely agree. It's one of the toughest things from a player's point of view, but they know themselves. We've been through it. You need game time to be at your best, so to go over there and do themselves justice and do the team justice, you need to have played a decent amount of rugby.
You guys experienced in World Cup warm-up games. Is it normally 4 when you were? Has it changed? Is it more now than it used to be, or?
It seems, I don't remember how many we played in 07 and 2011. I don't know. I think we
played 2 in 2011.
Ireland
Italy
and
Ireland.
Yeah.
But most guys only played in one of them. So you'd only played one, which wasn't enough. I think 3 is the optimal number. If you've got depending on how big your training squad is as well. But I think 3 would be good, and your involvement in maybe 2 of those 3, if you're playing full games, or maybe even involved in all 3, but in different, accumulating your game minutes. But 4's a challenge. 2 away games, a travel day, with the away game this weekend being in Georgia, and a longer flight adds another challenge. But it's all part of the preparation, and 60 turnaround's difficult, but there's that, there's a squad of determined athletes who want to be involved and want to stake their claim, and those who are lucky enough to be chosen this weekend won't worry about a 5 or 6 hour flight. They'll be there to make a difference.
I wonder if 4's influenced by the Southern Hemisphere teams coming out of the Rugby Championship. They play a lot more games throughout the summer, and history will show they've carried reasonable form into the World Cup as well. So I'd imagine there's maybe half an eye on that. I mean, the strength conditioning coaches as well as the rugby coaches will have a lot to say about how much you can put the players through before they go to it, or what is the optimum level for getting the best out of them as soon as you get onto that plane. And Gregor and his team have obviously decided that 4's right. Well, when we get to the end of this 4, I can't imagine that there'll be players who have played a huge amount of rugby more than others. I'm sure he'll look to balance it out, and we'll see that in the next couple of weeks.
Let's look back at the game itself now. It was a 17-14 victory for Scotland against France here at BT Murrayfield. How do you sum up that game?
The best part of the game for me, other than the victory obviously, was the fact that the players managed to put right a lot of things that went wrong the week before, and it wasn't necessarily the same group of players. It was a collective kind of understanding of the squad. So, but not only put right what went wrong last week, almost solve the problems that they found themselves in 15-20 minutes into the game when you were 14-3 down again. So the best bit for me was the fact that the players and the coaches wrestled back momentum of the game, mainly through kicking. There was a lot of attacking kicks, and it's sometimes difficult to I suppose say it's a good tactic when you don't get possession back, but France had scored most of their points of our possession over the last couple of weeks. A lot of the momentum they were getting in the game was from the blitz defence, so their strongest weapon was their defence. If you kick and find the space, they can't then employ their strongest weapon, which is their defence, and put you under pressure. So some of the kicks were untidy, it was a little bit scruffy at times, but the net effect of the short attacking kicking game, got a few back, actually stopped, it took away the strongest part, or one of the strengths of the French performance. So that was good. And just the fact that he wrestled the game back and got into a win position. I think there was 20 minutes to go after Chris Harris's try, and they managed the game really well thereafter, with players playing in different positions. I think it was only 1 second row on. You had 2 hookers in the pack, and trying to get your line-out calls and your scrum calls and your team plays. There's a lot of good understanding, and to do that with a victory was pleasing.
I think for me there was 2 main work-ons from the week before, and that was physicality and it was control of the game. There was lots written during the week after that first France game that everything needed ripped up and started again. But it shows you when you get the basics right, then the rest falls into place. So I believe we were far more physical, especially in defence. We were winning that game line, and Chris already talked about it there. The control of the game was much better. Those attacking kicks probably been the main theme in there. The week before we played poorly and made France look brilliant, and then in this game we played well. We didn't play outstandingly well, but we played well, and at times we looked comfortable. We made France look ordinary. I think defensively there was a big step up, and that shows that defensively you can then lead it on to the rest of the game. So all in all, a good game, but the same way the week before wasn't a catastrophe, this week isn't the be all and end all. It's another step closer to World Cup. There's some positives to work on going into the Georgia game, as opposed to just looking back the week before and it was predominantly negatives to work on. But you need to again have another reaction. It needs to be better next week than it was last week.
The kick chase was outstanding as well.
Yeah.
Defence was vastly improved in terms of one-on-one tackles and staying in the fight, but just wanting to make tackles was evident in terms of chasing your kicks as a line, not giving up easy. Some of the French backs especially are pretty dynamic runners in terms of, like, Dupont's very good at evasion and sidestepping, and he wriggles through contacts, but he never got free. Raka we contained really quite well, and Fikau. So the actual fight in the tackle was much better, and we got the rewards from it.
And the scrum as well, it's worth mentioning the scrum. The pitch dug up badly in Nice, and it potentially had an effect on our guys, but different group of players get the opportunity, and they scrummage very well, which gives you a platform. There's work-ons in the line-outs, but you get 2 reasonably inexperienced hookers out there as well. You finish the game with two hookers and I was going to say 4 back row, 3 back rows, but no 1 second row left. That puts it under pressure, as Chris had said. So set piece wise, scrum was a real positive line-out, a wee bit to work on this week.
That'll happen, well, potentially could happen in the World Cup as well, if you've got 4-day turnarounds and players rotating, and you might have. Quite often we see Fraser Brown, George Turner, Grant Stewart, these guys, and Stuart McIntyre, all 4 hookers can play in the back row, can't they? So that again, there's something to take away from the fact that the weekend you may find yourself in that situation in the weeks and months ahead.
The game at times was incredibly loose. Does that that seems to almost help us, this unstructured kind of play, or would you suggest that that's not good for anyone?
So I felt it was looser the week before from us. So we gave them cheap possession. We gave them the opportunity to attack from deep. We kicked poorly. The chase wasn't there. So although the game at the weekend, some of it's unstructured, and I think that's probably part of Gregor's game plan, and the players going out there and having to put it into place. But I felt it was less loose. I felt as if the control that Finn put on the game, he showed his maturity. Like, everybody talks about him attacking from everywhere. He was attacking through the boot. He realised the French defence was coming flying up, very narrow and coming flying up hard. So he was turning them. And towards the end of the game, both Finn and Hoggy were finding space in the backfield. The French backfield coverage was poor, but it takes a lot to recognise that. Chris will speak about that a lot more knowledgeably. But to be able to lift your head and see that space and then implement the kick shows a good amount of control for me.
I think as well, you don't necessarily plan. There's maybe a misconception you plan to be unstructured. I don't think many coaches will do that. I think the unstructured nature comes from errors. And when you've got two teams making a lot of errors, you have, by definition, a pretty unstructured game. And the first 15-20 minutes were a bit like that at the weekend. A lot of penalties, a lot of turnovers, pre-contact, quite a frantic nature to it. Again, it's because it's early season. So I think that kind of contributed to as you say, how loose it was early on. But as the game went on, I agree with Al, it became more controlled. France made some changes. Losing Lopez, I think, was a blow just before half time, or was it just before half time, I think. And because he's never been seen as a real great controller of the game, but I noticed that a difference when Intermac came on, that we got a bit more momentum in the game as well. So losing him was a blow, but as I say, the platform that we eventually found allowed Scotland to control the game better and get the win.
What kind of players for you guys then stood out? I mean, people were talking about Hamish Watson the weekend. He just seems to just kick on each week. But any other players jump out for you from Scotland?
Hamish Watson was a standout. Chris and I were nudging each other in commentary to work out who was going to be man of the match. And from a Scotland point of view, he had a good game. Finn had a good game as well. But Hamish there was no errors in Hamish's game as well. Some really good stuff. I thought Blade Thompson had a good game. He showed that he brings something slightly different. He looked physical out there as well, and it wasn't necessarily a part of his game that people would say as he stand out. But he was, when a ruck was getting hit by him, it was staying hit. As I say, I thought Finn showed a maturity that at times people only think about him as this flair player, but he controlled that game brilliantly. Anybody else from your point of view, Chris?
Scrum was good, wasn't it?
Scrum was good. Gordy Reid
front row worked hard in around the scrum. There's a few players who would have improved their chances of going on that flight to Japan. But in order to win, there's some experienced players that are really crucial, and I've mentioned them all: Finn, Hoggy, Greg. And these guys are in the spine of that team. Hamish, the spine of that team that allow you to control the game. So I think these guys come to the fore when you have to understand that the game's won.
I think the second row union here, young Scott Cummings. I mean, getting his first start. He'd only played half of the game the week before, not even. So for him to step up and do well enough that we're not talking about them, and it I think shows well for him. I said in commentary, I thought that his performance in the final for Glasgow against Lynsey, he was the best Glasgow player on the park. So he's got the pedigree. He's a good player, and who knows now, as we said at the beginning, he might have a far greater opportunity going and showing what he can do at the World Cup now. You
guys mentioned Gordy Reid, who's now with the Ayrshire Bulls of the Super Six. Is there anyone you can remember who went to a World Cup who was assigned or part of a club team, or is this kind of a bit of a rarity? Mossy, you've got your hand up there. Isn't ideal for a podcast, but
good, Jamie.
Thank you.
Well, I was official an Edinburgh player, but I hadn't played for Edinburgh.
Right.
So I played my first international tour was 1999, and my club team was Gala. We were playing the second division at the time, and then from there I was selected to play in the World Cup. So I think I played maybe one warm-up game for Edinburgh, but I hadn't played. So effectively, but
You're with Gala.
I was effectively just straight from Division 2, Jamie.
Other fixtures this weekend, Ireland and England. It was a huge result for England. What does that say about Ireland? Should there be alarm bells ringing? Good news for us in the World Cup?
I don't think it is good news for us. We talked about this briefly. I'm not sure it's good news for us at all. They're a good side that got heavily beaten, so therefore they will know exactly what they've got to get better. So I think from our point of view, they certainly won't be caught cold. You wouldn't expect them to catch them cold at a World Cup, but I'm not sure that that result is a good result for us, Chris.
No, it's similar in many ways to our performance away in Nice. The purpose of these games is to prepare you for a World Cup. So if Ireland's result on Saturday prepares them for being successful at World Cup, it served its purpose. 57-15 is a heavy defeat, but England can do that. At home they've got some phenomenal power runners, and when they get their tail up, they can do that. I also be interested to know how well prepared Ireland were for that game. They've been training pretty heavily through it. I think Joe Schmidt said himself they were heavy-legged, they were underprepared in some ways, and they were coming up against a team who'd played, well, that was their third hard-fought international after playing Wales back-to-back. So there was a discrepancy in the preparation, and the quality of players on show can do that. And I agree what Joe Schmidt said as well. He says sometimes there doesn't need to be a lot between the teams in order to make a big score. It sounds pretty difficult to understand, but if momentum gets you up, your tail up, and you get up and running, that can happen. But so if it means Ireland find the solutions to their problems, then it served its purpose. It could mean that Ireland are behind where they'd like to be, but they've got time to fix that. Or it could mean that England are way ahead of where Ireland at the moment. Who knows? But we'll have a better idea once we've seen Ireland play 2 or 3 more fixtures.
I think Moss's point on England, they're looking good. They lost that game in Cardiff. If they'd won that game, I think Eddie Jones is talking it down, not ready to win a World Cup. We're not ready to win a World Cup, but they are, out of the games so far, for me, the team that are carrying the biggest amount of form.
But they were poor, relatively poor. I would say they're pretty poor in Cardiff, though.
Yeah, there's that. As I say, there's that blip. But when you see them when they're at their strongest,
and that's what I mean about. We see it almost every week now. The top 10 nations, there's, you can't guarantee a win for either team when the top 10 nations are playing against each other. The consistency will determine who's top of the world rankings, but something like England, say if their game's built on power, South Africans will be more powerful, I believe. So, who would you see coming out on top in that one? Or you just don't know. But as I say, how true a reflection of the quality of teams these games are, we won't know until the end of September when it tees off for real.
Yeah, it was a 57-15 victory for England at home. But as you say, Ireland could come back raring to go. I don't know who have they got next week. Have they got?
They play Wales in Dublin, and I believe Joe Schmidt said they'd make a few changes. Ron Gatland's apparently going to pick quite a young team. Mm-hmm. So again, it's part of the preparation. Interestingly, one thing that Joe Schmidt said as well, I said that the first quarter they saw a lot of positives in, and then they conceded a try just before half time that took them from 15-10 down to 22-10 down. He said that had a massive bearing on the game, and it's that important time to score, because if you flip it on the head here, us scoring just before half time probably had a big net effect on the game as well. So, and
I think you've referred to it in the past, but when you score at either side of half time, is it referred to as championship points? Is that, even though you're not playing for a championship, but in the Six
championship
Nations,
minutes was a
championship minutes? Sorry, is that the phrase that you use?
Yeah, an old coach used to say, and it's true. It's true. The momentum swing in that period. It used to treat the kind of 5 minutes before and the 5 minutes after as a mini game in itself, try and win that period, and just loads of different ways of retaining focus. Don't forget that 35 to 40 minutes, before a break at half time, is probably by definition where you're most fatigued in that first half as well. So
you're at your most vulnerable, aren't you?
Yeah, your capacity to kind of stay switched on, focused. So there's ways around it, but I just thought that really, over the 2 games of the weekend, important tries just before half time had a big effect on the net result.
Top 14 was back this weekend as well. Can you believe that? Like, the player welfare, let's talk about that for a second. Is that a big enough break between I think they finished in June, end of June, and they're back in now. That's less than 2 months. What's the thing? If you're a player, is that a difficult mindset to get into, knowing you've only got a very short gap?
I suppose it depends how much time they had off, how much of it was actually away from rugby. If there's a 4 or 5 week block where they're away from rugby completely, then you can switch off. The next debate is how many games they play in a season. Now, some of the teams who have smaller squads, they'll put an awful lot of pressure, especially in a World Cup year, on those squads. And then other teams will be able to rotate round, and you'll play a similar amount of games. So there's lots of variables into it, but I think that the season seems to get longer and longer, and the off season's almost non-existent now.
Yeah.
Depending on whether you've toured with the national team, whether you've just finished with your club and you're coming straight back in. But it's a key topic. It's a topic I believe are actually very good at managing within Scotland. There's certain protocols in place, but coaches have got their own autonomy to chop and change a little bit as well, to try and make sure that they've got the players as fresh as possible.
Most of the French teams have big squads. They almost try and traditionally run with a home team and an away team, so you might not be exposed to every game all year by that, but you're still exposed to the mental aspect of training preparation, so it can be long. I think it's a long season. The Pro 14 final next year is the 20th of June, and I think the top 14 must be after that. There are breaks in the season, but it's a long season for the French guys.
Georgia this weekend, going to be a completely different game. We'll review it properly next week when we're back, but what can we expect from this match at the weekend?
Another opportunity for players. I think he'll go quite strong, I would imagine. It's an interesting one because this is the last game that Greg and his team have before the selection is made. Now, he'll be pretty much up to speed with it. I can't think there'll be all that many decisions to make, but it's the last opportunity he's got. So I expect it will be reasonably strong. Most of the players, if not all of them, coming from what will be his 31.
What do we expect? Well, what do we know? We know Georgia will be hugely passionate. They'll be fit. They'll be certainly physically demanding. They'll be physically strong. The scrum's outstanding. The maul will be excellent. They'll be combative. Where will they struggle potentially is maybe if we can play a really clever decision-making based game and put them under a stress their defence in terms of making them a decision on who to tackle rather than just being direct, meeting fire with fire. I think you have to stress their decision-making. They'll be buoyed by, I think it's 50,000 potential sellout, first tier 1 visit to Georgia Nation to play in Georgia. Take all that out of it. Scotland have to be clinical, and they have to understand they probably won't get it all their own way in the game because of the physical kind of capabilities Georgia have. So it's I think you play clever, you move them around, you kick well, you chase well, you make as little errors as possible, and it'll actually, if you think about that, that's actually quite representative of how your World Cup fixtures might pan out. So it'd be good preparation.
So Mossy's had to nip off to Orion, but Al and I are in the studio and delighted to have now with us our Head of Group Marketing and Commercial, Toni Blackhurst, and our Head of Brand from Scottish Rugby, Lynsey McMillan. Guys, how are you?
We're well, thank you.
Thank you very much for coming along. We basically got you in here today because 15 sellouts here at BT Murrayfield, a phenomenal achievement, and we want you guys to explain to us how this all came about and how it's happened.
17 sellouts, Jamie. I'm going to disagree with 17 because we're going to include the Spice Girls and the Liverpool game in that as well.
Fair enough, 17 sellouts. Anyway, remarkable achievement. I think, first of all, guys, just want to explain what it is I guess you do at Scottish Rugby. I'll start with you, Toni, first of all.
My role encompasses marketing and commercial, so that's around selling BT Murrayfield and selling tickets to fans, but also selling the game of rugby across the country and inspiring that next generation to pick up a ball and want to play rugby. From a commercial perspective, it's around looking after all of our fantastic family of partners that we have at Scottish Rugby, and then also being out in the market and attracting new sponsors to join us.
I'm Lynsey McMillan. I help support Toni across our marketing remit and trying to sell out as many games as we can here at BT Murrayfield, but also marketing the game from a grassroots level all the way up to international level. And I also help to globalise the brand of Scottish rugby and Scotland through our digital channels, through our broadcast opportunities, to try and get our brand out there as much as we can. So between us, it's quite a varied role that we both have, but quite an exciting one as well.
And 15 sellouts, I phenomenal achievement. Sorry, 17. Al just looked at me there. 17 sellouts, a great achievement. Toni, when you think about where we are now with these 17 sellouts, how long in the kind of the timeline have you guys been planning for this succession of events?
So I think that planning is something that's been taking place for years, and it never stops, and we continue to evolve with every game and every year that goes by. We launched our Scotland Season Pass a number of years ago, and that was about rewarding our most loyal fans and making sure that those fans who wanted to come to every game had access to the biggest games and could buy that Scotland Season Pass for the whole year, pay on direct debit, and enjoy BT Murrayfield for every game. We're also, though, looking at our newer rugby fans and those fans who've maybe not been to a game of rugby before. And so the weekend, great example of that. There was thousands of young children around at that game. So things like Kids for a Quid, Groups and Schools offers. It's all about making rugby accessible and attracting our new rugby fans as well as our more diehard long-term supporters.
Lynsey, Toni talks about the most loyal fans, and that's changing as well, and we're attracting more families to come to the games. How do you make sure you're speaking directly to these people in the right way? So it's social media is growing, you're learning more about our fans day to day, but how do you learn about them? What are the different mechanisms you use in your team?
So there's a lot of research that goes into who our fans are. We undertook a piece of research a few years ago now that we look very closely at whenever we're planning anything. And basically it informed us that we have sort of 4 key audience groups, and we've got a real depth of knowledge about who those audience groups are, how they consume, what they come to a match day for, what would make them have an enjoyable day. And whenever we're planning anything or targeting them with any sort of level of communication, we tailor it to that audience. It's huge amounts of depth I could go into, and I won't bore everyone on the podcast today with what that is, but we were quite pleasantly surprised in one of those audience groups to see that it was predominantly female, and it was a younger age between sort of 18 and 24. So for example, we would do a lot of Instagram to target that particular audience and make sure that they're getting a level of communication that they're looking for. Then we sort of transcend that into the match day by making sure there's lots for them to do, the types of things they'd want to see in a match day, but also not forgetting about those other audience groups as well, and catering for everyone. I think that's the key that we try to achieve here at BT Murrayfield, is making sure it's an enjoyable day for everybody, and making sure everyone gets something out of it.
We've got many fans who've never missed a game for the last 10, 20, 30 years. We had a great story last year of a fan who'd never missed a Scotland game. Whereas, of course, we've still got loyal fans who've maybe only been introduced to rugby in the last year. And they're the fans who maybe want more information, they need to understand what's happening. They're coming for that whole day out, as well as just the rugby. We probably had fans in the stadium for over 7 hours on Saturday. The gates opened at 10:15. There was a massive stream of people came in, and at 6:15 there were still people here enjoying the day out. So we had fans here for 7-8 hours. Which is clearly fans coming for far more than just 80 minutes of the rugby game.
You guys work very closely with Gregor. He's very aware of what you guys are doing when it comes to marketing and brand. How easy or how enjoyable is it that you have the backing lens of the head coach as well?
Oh, it's fantastic. I think the more organic you can make your messaging to your fans, the more that it links from the national team through to the supporters. It's priceless, absolutely priceless. And I think the best example of that is our sort of brand positioning, which is as one. We've had it for a number of years now. It means a lot to us. It means a lot to our fans. And now it's been hugely adopted by Gregor and the team, and they have it throughout their team room, throughout the changing rooms. It's kind of their ethos as well. Any sort of organic relationship you can have between the national team and your fans is absolutely priceless. So it's great that Gregor's adopted that. It's great he mentions it in team meetings, and basically just wants the boys to kind of display our values, our business values, and that as one ethos throughout everything that they do as well.
Now, one of the great things here at BT Murrayfield is the space that we have. Now, you look at other stadiums around the world, some closer to home, some further away, they don't have the footprint that we've got. Now, it's about making the most of that footprint, Tony, isn't it? The West Stand Village, the fact that you can pre and post match fill that place with as many fans as we can cram in.
Yeah, it's an incredible asset for our partners, which then makes our fantastic match day. So, on Saturday there we had Vitality with their skills session, which a couple of the players went over. So, young children are then participating in rugby skills ahead of a game. Crabbies were there with their passing challenge. Strathmore had an unclimbable ladder. All our drink sponsors had their different bars. So that whole space, one, enhances our matchday experience, but for sponsors, what better way to activate and engage and bring their sponsorship to life than being able to link in with fans on a match day. So yeah, that space is incredibly valuable to us to have.
Another great use of space, what used to be affectionately known as the Void. So we look around BT Murrayfield, it's a massive stadium, and there are spots in it, storage areas that can be brought to life, and a good example of that is with the Up and Under, the Tenants Up and Under as it's known now. Can you talk us through how that process happened?
Yeah, so unfortunately the weather's not always like it was on Saturday, and indoor bar space is something that clearly we would like more of. And having worked with Tenants over a number of years, our official beer partner, they used to put up temporary marquees in the West Fan Village, and really wanted a permanent home. So we identified a storage space, and working with Tenants, transformed that storage space into the Tenants Up and Under. And what that means for Tenants now is, rather than just having a bar on 5-6 match days a year, then now we've got a sports bar which is open whenever we need a bar for any corporate events, for the Christmas parties, for the match day. And the queue of people to get in there on a match day, pre and post match, is just phenomenal. So there'll be a band in there'll be players come up for a Q&A. It's fantastic. It's fantastic atmosphere in there, and 400 fans in there pre and post match every game.
Oh, you spend a bit of time in the Up and Under. Do you not do a bit of your hospitality in there? You do a bit of hosting in the Up and Under? Are you in the suites now? You've been moved down to the suites?
I'm in the suites, yes. So I host a business club, do a bit of work in the Thistle. But we, to Tony's point on the player interaction, we'll always have players pre and post match as well. The guys, probably even more so than when I played, they understand it's far more than just the 80 minutes. Tony mentioned that earlier on, but the players get that as well. They've got to help build it, help sell the tickets, help globalise the brand, as Lynsey talked about earlier on as well. And you generally get them on great form. They understand the key messages, but they're relaxed and honest, and that's one of the best things about our sport.
And Lynsey, you're heavily involved in what happens kind of on the pitch entertainment wise. I know you have a hand in when we have our lights out shows like that. So that whole creative kind of concept, you collaborate with the events team, with our broadcast team, but that must be a great perk for your job, that you have this creative freedom to bring Murrayfield to life.
Absolutely. It's a massive team effort, so just even being a small part of that is an absolute privilege. And I find the most satisfying part about my job is when you have an idea and then you can actually then see it being played out in front of your eyes, in front of a 67,000 seater stadium, absolutely packed. You can't beat that. But it's a massive team effort. But I think one thing that we never want to do is get complacent. We know that there's a lot of competition for people's pounds, and we never want to get complacent that they're just going to come to Scottish Rugby and come to a Scotland game. So we like to challenge ourselves. We like to do things differently. We like to expand what we're trying to do, and we like to innovate. So that is one of the best parts of my job. And I think one of the keys to that, and I know Toni will agree, is that we get to go to other events and see how they do things, and take learnings from other people. And it's not always sporting events, although going to sporting events is really useful. And we do a lot of share learnings with other unions and other sports organisations. I get a lot of ideas from gigs, from festivals, and I think that's what helps us keep it fresh.
From a commercial point of view, some great news last year when BBC Alba took on the women's game, and now Super 6 is going to be on BBC but also on Scottish Rugby TV. Those are two huge kind of broadcast commercial deals. How proud are you that you've got the women on BBC Alba and Super 6 coming up on Scottish Rugby TV and beyond?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I think Scottish Rugby TV, over the last few years, our own channel, we've live streamed a lot of games, and really demonstrated that there's a real appetite from our viewers, of course, to be watching far more than just the national team. And the women's team having all their live games on Alba, absolutely brilliant for the professionalisation of the women's sport.
It'll help drive fans as well, won't it? It'll drive fans to the women's games, the under-20s games. The more visual they are, it'll help more girls and boys pick the ball up, which is future-proofing it from our point of view, as far as making sure that the fans and a governing body point of view, that the game is as healthy as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have thousands of fans going down to Scotstoun. It's great that Scotstoun's the home of our women's team now, and we've got thousands of fans going to every game. And what's really nice to see is there's hundreds and hundreds of young girls who are waiting to meet the players after the game, and our women's players are a real inspiration to the young girls. We also announced last year SP Energy Networks as our front of shirt sponsor for the women's team, and that's the first time we've split out the women's sponsorship from the men's sponsorship, again, which is a real testament to how far that women's team, in terms of its professionalisation, has moved over the last few years. In terms of Super 6, again, brilliant that all of those, we're going to have one game live streamed every weekend, with the final then being live on BBC Scotland, and that'll really help to raise the profile of what's going to be a fantastic new tournament.
One byproduct of the 15 rugby sellouts, we'll say, Lynsey, is the fact that we sold our millionth ticket in a row. That was a nice event, and nice to be able to bring a lucky winner into sea training last week.
It was brilliant, and you know what, we couldn't have found a better fan to have given such a special experience to. We had Isabel with us for the day, absolutely fantastic supporter of ours, supports the teams across the country, Glasgow and Edinburgh, club level, follows the national team, a real loyal supporter. So we were really pleased we were able to show her a good day. She was absolutely brilliant. She got to meet some of her favourite players, and yeah, she had a good few interesting conversations with them as well. She didn't shy away from asking the tough questions that we might not want to.
Toni, Lynsey, it's been great hearing. Well, I know what you guys do, but it's been great to share that with everybody listening to the podcast. But I'm just going to ask you one more question. What is the best thing about your jobs?
Working with such a brilliant group of people and being able to see tangible results of all that hard work. I can't tell you how proud you feel when you see a stadium full of people cheering on the team, and you know how much hard work has gone into that. So being able to see tangible results is without doubt the thing that I enjoy most about my role.
Yeah, I can completely echo what Toni says. I think the only thing I'd add to that is the reason we're here is to inspire the next generation of rugby players, and to think that someone might come here on a match day and pick up a rugby ball off the back of that and start a career in rugby, whether it's at club level or through to professional level, it's absolutely amazing. So yeah, that would be a highlight, to try and inspire the next generation.
One last thing it's worth talking about is the Georgia game. We're in a great place for ticket sales, and I believe there's some breaking news. Toni, you want to share that with us?
Yeah, so today Georgia is now officially our second biggest ever summer test after the France sellout last Saturday.
But we do not want the run to end. We're sitting on 15, but it would be massive to get to 16, wouldn't it? So what's your message to anybody who's sitting at home that maybe doesn't have their tickets yet?
Oh, it'd be fantastic, and it's something that we are absolutely trying to achieve. It's Friday evening, which is completely unique for us in recent times at BT Murrayfield for a Scotland game, but it's the time to send the team off in style. We want every single Scotland fan to be here at BT Murrayfield that can make it next Friday, and give a team a send-off that they deserve to Japan. So if you've not bought your ticket yet, we would absolutely love you to be here.
Lynsey, Toni, brilliant having you on the podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening to the official Scottish Rugby podcast. We'll be back next week, looking back at the match with Georgia and Tbilisi, and looking ahead to the final send-off here at BT Murrayfield.